everybody knew it was polling between the 80s and 90% for Bukele. So the chances of him winning were extraordinarily high. So to go to El Salvador, to talk to people in the street, to get as much behind the scenes I could, trying to get in there, and really just see what was happening on the streets with the people of El Salvador. So I didn't know what was going to happen. Obviously, I made a documentary. I didn't know if this was at that moment when I began. I didn't know if it was going to be a short film or feature film, etc. Kind of all was dependent on who I could speak with, if President Bukele would possibly allow me to interview him, etc. What ended up happening is I made a 30-minute short film, but specifically on those days of reelection.
Hello guys, welcome once again to BitCorner Podcast. It's a new season, and today, we're going to start with an English episode, but I promise I'm going to bring you Spanish episodes. I know that the first episode is in Spanish, but today you will figure out why it's in English today. So welcome back. All right, great interviews as well, great guest. You'll find out this season is going to be better than the one before, and again, thank you for your support as usual. So, all right, I want to start talking about this topic because the screen was just a few days ago. But first, I want to welcome Jessica Solce to the podcast. So, welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Jessica, so yeah, we were talking that, someone from Bitcoin Film Fest told me about your film about El Salvador, and it's super curious. So, we were going to discuss deeper about that, but just to give a little bit of context about what's going to be this podcast. So you flew to El Salvador and filmed the day the voting was happening, right?
Yeah, so I went to El Salvador on February 3rd, or 2nd, pardon me, to basically film the moment of the re-election, because I say I can call it a re-election. Everybody knew it was polling between the 80s and 90% for Bukele. So the chances of him winning were extraordinarily high. So to go to El Salvador, to talk to people in the street, to get as much behind the scenes I could, trying to get in there, and really just see what was happening on the streets with the people of El Salvador. So I didn't know what was going to happen. Obviously, I made a documentary. I didn't know if this was at that moment when I began. I didn't know if it was going to be a short film or feature film, etc. Kind of all was dependent on who I could speak with, if President Bukele would possibly allow me to interview him, etc. What ended up happening is I made a 30-minute short film, but specifically on those days of reelection.
This opportunity to fix our country, I will not have it again.
We believe that his decisions are the ones that are changing the course of the story of this country.
We have been liberated. Our country was reborn.
El Salvador ya es otro país.
We weren't meant to be great, and we're being great at this time.
He is like the internet. When the internet came, it changed the world. It changed the way of life.
So it's like a moment of time in El Salvador, and what it was like to be on the streets, what was like a little bit back, behind the scenes, what was happening, and just capturing that. Most of the people I talk to still don't really know what's happening, or they've only read Western headlines. So the information is limited, And they don't know that El Salvador, from my entire experience, I've only been there 4 times, but 4 great times, is really safe now. And the chances and the abilities and all this turnaround that is happening is really exciting and palpable. So yeah, so that's what the short film was.
That's so cool. And disclaimer, guys, both of us, we're not paid by the government. We're not paid by Bukele. I don't follow I don't support Arena or FMLN. Those are the righties and lefties. Mm-hmm. Even I support no ideas. I just support Bitcoin. That's why this is a full Bitcoin podcast. And Jessica as well.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so yeah, everything that we're going to talk is about your experience in El Salvador as well. So maybe you should start by sharing just a bit about yourself so people can have a bit of context about you. You have recorded more films, right? And one of them is That Athletic, and I'm super fan of that.
Yeah, thank you. Sure, I'm a documentary filmmaker. I basically started making documentaries in 2010. 2 features have been made. And this is my first short film. So I set out to do this short film, not knowing what it was going to be, but it was the right thing to kind of encapsulate it in this moment. Yeah, so that's who I am. Before that, I was working in theater and working for people in the film world, but I've always been kind of like in the film and theater world. And yeah, that's who I am.
That's so cool. Can we talk a bit about That Athletic before we talk about Forging a Country?
Sure.
I know that you have talked about it in other podcasts, but I want to discuss it because I think people in El Salvador don't know that about the laws of guns in U.S. because I think it's very specific in the United States, the laws to have the rights to have a gun, right? So can you share a bit about what was your documentary and why did you make it?
Sure. So Death Athletics started in 2015. From start to finish, it was actually an 8-year project. It was specifically profiling an individual and a company, Cody Wilson and Defense Distributed. And Cody Wilson was the first person who put the idea and then the actual tool of a 3D printed gun on the internet. So it really, the movie encapsulates basically his story from beginning to 2022, everything that's happening in the courts, the motivations behind what he did, the ethos and the virtue behind what he's done, and his personal, like it's a pretty intimate personal journey that had many ups and downs of all kinds. So this was a film about the Second Amendment, but it's actually really about the First Amendment in the United States. So people think it's just a gun documentary, but it's far more than that. And when it comes down to it, it's much more about First Amendment. The ability to speak, the ability to share information, and the ability of the government to get between you and the information that you can receive on a computer.
And what is the Second Amendment for people that don't know?
Oh, Second Amendment is the right to own arms. Okay. So it's the rights to gun ownership, if you will. Obviously, it has a lot of more details than that, but that's the basics. And First Amendment is the right to free speech.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you filmed Cody for 7 years.
Yeah. So filmed for 7 years, and it took 8 years to make the documentary.
Wow, that's a long point of view. How do you know that you will continue filming him? Or I mean, do you have like a certain idea at the beginning and then you pivot to something else, or how do you evolve to?
I mean, I always knew that it was going to be a longer piece. I didn't know how long. I always knew it was going to be longer just because I really, really wanted to catch all the things that were happening, which there's many, many details in the film, from legal to personal to jobs to motivations to ethos to virtue to it's a lot of layered topics in there. I just didn't know how long that would be. And this was, I think the timing of 8 years was actually absolutely correct. If I had stopped any other time along the way, it would have missed so many arcs and changes and points. When I knew to finish, it was very obvious it was time to be done with it. And I had all kind of just in the idea of a story, I had everything I needed to build a story in a film as well, which is important.
Super amazing, because is he the first person that made the 3D printer gunners like open source, or how is exactly the story?
So he was the first person who he made the first 3D printed gun. There were other people playing with the ideas of it, and they started with 3D printing specific parts. There were a couple other people that were like toying with the ideas of using printers and building pieces and such like this, but he was really the first person that took it out of the hobbying world and really used it as a tool, and a political tool, on the mainstream platform, if you will. The media loved it. When it first came out, they couldn't get enough. Of course, it was under the guise of being horrible and evil and terrible and all this stuff. But that was still a time in media where like that would get clicks and that would get energy, and they were more than happy to talk about it. And it was like the default of exciting news, right? So yeah, he's kind of in some ways the godfather of the plastic gun. For now, starting as of like 2019 and 2020, the world of 3D guns, the amount of engineers and people that are building it just really took off. And now you can find so many projects and so many builds and so many engineering feats with the usages of plastic. Polymer.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And how do you pivot to that athletic to filming in a country in El Salvador? Do you were looking another film to make, or do you had something in your radar about El Salvador? Because you have said that you have been in El Salvador before, so do you have do you wanted to film in El Salvador? Do you have that in mind while you were filming Death Athletic, or how?
Not while I was filming Death Athletic. The first time I started paying attention to El Salvador was around January of 2023, I think. Death Athletic had premiered and came out. January of 2022. And then I got invited to a kind of like a private conference in El Salvador. In 23. Oh, I'm getting the dates all mixed up. Yeah, January of 2023. Then the film came out. I was invited down to El Salvador for a private conference. That was August of 2023. But I had already been reading, and I was super curious about what was happening down there. So it was this kind of wonderful overlapping of interests. So I came down, I showed Death Athletic, and at that time, then I started meeting people that were living in El Salvador. I was there for 4 days. I had a beautiful time. And so, the things started happening. Once I started meeting people and had visited, I was like, oh, this could be something. And then in January of 2024, it started happening. It started occurring. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going down in a month to capture this new election and see what happens. So I had been reading about El Salvador. And then, like anything, projects, they're germinating. And this one just kind of really fell into place.
Yeah, that's cool. But you were interested? No, because you were invited by this conference. But did Bukele or Bitcoin or everything in general caught you the attention there, or it was just when you went there that you said, okay, I had to record something about Salvador?
So before I went there in January of 2023, I started reading about El Salvador and was interested in possibly making something. So being invited there was this wonderful synchronicity of just getting me there. And so I was already interested. I didn't know what
Yeah.
that would be.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And by the way, how do you got in Bitcoin, by the way?
In 2013, my Cody Wilson, who is the person that I was in my first film and who is in Death Athletic, told me about Bitcoin. And the moment I heard about it, I was hooked.
Really? What?
Yeah.
But what was your like aha moment for you? What convinced you that Bitcoin is what it is?
Being told what it was about and then reading Satoshi's paper. I guess like I immediately got it. And within a month I started getting little bits and investing and trying to figure. It was a much different landscape then, even though it was years after it had been on the marketplace of ideas. It still was a much more different kind of hoop to get in. There were far fewer exchanges. There was a little bit more seeming risk. Like it was kind of like Brave New World for me. But I loved it from the beginning.
Because right now I have seen that your films, well, even this one, the recent one, your funds you're doing it with Kaiser, right? So you pay sats to do that. So
yeah, they do Lightning and on chain. In Death Athletic, my executive producers that jumped on in 2022 was Samurai Wallet. So I have, I've been in it for a while. Samurai Wallet got into, so there's a core of people that I know and also on the internet that, they want to use Bitcoin or Monero or, Lightning, and they want to be able to buy with that. So that's why I use it. It's just a great other form of, exchange that it's great to have.
And have you seen like a difference in El Salvador from what you have read before being there and then going back? How is your personal experience?
Sure. I mean, definitely when I was reading about it in early 22, I had no idea what to expect. I mean, you can hear about, I was being told the violence was being reduced and extra, but you still don't know what that means in a country that you've never visited. The very first time I went, I actually didn't see San Salvador. It was for this conference, and we were at this conference place. We left. So I only was able to exchange with the people at the hotel and they, for everything that we would get back from the people that worked at the hotel and the people around they were very excited about what was happening. Very curious, very interested. I did not encounter negativity. The second time I went was then in February to film. And it was just, you could see on the streets at that time, there seemed to be a lot of just like joy, excitement to be outside. There was almost like a childful joyfulness. As an outsider, that's what it seemed. And I have never once, I was walking around with film equipment. I had other people with me, but they were doing their thing. It's seemingly alone, a young lady walking around with film equipment, blah, blah, blah. I never once have felt like an inkling of like, I shouldn't be doing this or like something. No, I mean, the Salvadorian people, as you know, are also extremely welcoming and super lovely and super nice. And then I went back in March and I did visit some small towns. And I mean, honestly, my experience is everyone seems, it seems like it's in a good place. Of course, you do see the poverty. Of course, that's there. The interesting thing is like the worst I could get from people talking to them on the streets, like the worst thing they could say is basically, but it's not enough, we need more.
Cuando dejas tus activos digitales en un exchange o en custodia de alguien más, te expones a riesgos de terceros no deseados. A diferencia del sistema bancario tradicional, Bitcoin te permite tomar el control total de tus fondos utilizando tus propias claves privadas. Esto te permite ser soberano y esencialmente tu propio banco. Al tomar el control de tus Bitcoins, puedes evitar riesgos innecesarios de terceros. Almacenar tus Bitcoin en custodia de terceros como los exchanges puede exponerte a ataques de actores malintencionados, gobiernos o estafadores que lo único que quieren es apoderarse de tu dinero. El proceso de autocustodia puede parecer abrumador al principio, pero afortunadamente Blockstream Jade Wallet hace que sea súper fácil custodiar tus activos. Las billeteras de hardware son dispositivos que almacenan de forma segura las claves privadas de tus bitcoins y o activos de Liquid sin conexión a Internet. Las billeteras de hardware aumentan la seguridad de tu billetera porque tus claves privadas se almacenan en un dispositivo especializado que no está siempre conectado al Internet. Como te he dicho antes, mantener tus claves almacenadas en un dispositivo en línea puede exponerte a factores adicionales de ataque, por lo que se recomienda usar una billetera de hardware al almacenar grandes cantidades de Bitcoin durante largos periodos de tiempo. Jade es una billetera de hardware no custodial para Bitcoins y Liquid que ofrece opciones de firma simple y firmas múltiples. Yo personalmente lo utilizo para almacenar mis Bitcoins, ya que me siento mucho más seguro manteniendo mis Bitcoins en una billetera fría que en una almacenada, por ejemplo, en mi teléfono. Si estás pensando en adquirir uno para ti, no olvides utilizar el código de descuento de nuestro show, BitCorner Podcast. De esta forma estarás apoyando directamente el show y además obtendrás un 10% de descuento para la compra de tu billetera fría. BitCorner Podcast es posible gracias a la ayuda de nuestros partners, así que hablemos de Adopting Bitcoin. Los próximos 15 y 16 de noviembre se celebrará la cuarta edición de Adopting Bitcoin en El Salvador. 2 días llenos de presentaciones, paneles, networking, además del mejor café del mundo. Usa el código HODLSV para obtener un 10% de descuento y experimenta la economía circular de Bitcoin visitando las mejores playas y montañas y probando las mejores pupusas en San Salvador.
Great, he did this, but I don't like him yet. We need more. Or I like it, but, more schools, more. And I think that is an absolutely fair criticism. Like, you need to constantly be holding up your president, everything, and being like, we need more. But in some ways, obviously, you can't have any of that until you have security. You can't have any of that progress until you fix, 50, 55 years of a country that was being destroyed. So even though you see that, you see some of the poverty, you see that, and obviously there needs to be change. There is, I feel like I have hope. I have tons of hope for the country, and that he follows what he says he's going to do. And the next is tackling these other massive issues that can't be changed in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It has to be implemented with many, many decisions across many platforms of change, right? So these next 5 years are going to be pretty interesting. Like, what things are the government going to choose to tackle, and what can they start implementing? And then we can have a discussion again and being like, he's sidetracked, or wow, okay, infrastructure got built and now there's more jobs coming to the country. Huge. So it's interesting. There's still so many questions, and I think they're fair questions. But also, like, calling him like a straight up dictator is kind of ridiculous too, because obviously,
I want to ask you about that later.
yeah. Obviously, the when you literally have a democratic election and you get 87% of the vote, that's, I mean, if you want a democracy, that's pretty darn close. One would say.
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, that it's really funny because I remember that I was talking with my dad the day of the elections. No, the day before. And he told me, there's a big difference right now with Bukele, and not just here in El Salvador, but in the whole world. And it's that a president can be popular and accepted. And he told me, like, but what you have seen with Bukele is that he is popular and accepted, but other president that doesn't mean that because he's popular, he's gonna be accepted, right?
Sure.
But he accomplished both, and so he told me that's why he's going to win. So with this amount of gap between the other parties, and so yeah, and I totally agree with you. I mean, that's the thing what you say. We have been in 2 different wars, first the Civil War and then the one against Nasmara for so many years, almost 50 years. So yeah, it's like Stacey Harvard says, we are rebuilding right now. El Salvador is reborn. Yeah. So I think, the first step, the first 5 years, we needed to secure the country. And right now, in his second term, we need to make grow the country with infrastructure, sport, as you said. And it will be interesting. Yeah, I'm following his track on what's going to be the second term. It will be amazing. Yeah. So I want to ask you. Okay, I have two questions, but I think the first one is I want to ask you about the day that you were filming. So there were a lot of people in the streets, and I know the traffic in El Salvador, it's a madness. How do you manage with your crew to film what you wanted to film? Do you have what was your biggest challenge that you faced capturing the mood there?
I mean, I was too busy. I don't even remember traffic.
Really?
Yeah, oddly enough. And then the few times that we were like behind the scenes with, like we got to be kind of like behind the scenes with Bukele. Luckily, we were able to jump in some of the, the presidential vans. So they were just like, traffic didn't exist because they'd cleared, I guess, parts of the road to get him places, right? So for us, that was fine. But I mean, we filmed 3 days in a row. I guess it's just like everything when you're doing a project and you're doing it on your feet and you're making decisions as you go, and especially with documentary projects, sometimes most of the time you don't even know who, like for everyone on the street, obviously I had no idea who I was going to talk to until I saw someone and I said, and I had a wonderful translator with me and we asked them, will you talk to us? So that part is just very impromptu. Of course, when I was trying to get behind the scenes with Bukele, like, I don't know what's going to happen when we step into rooms. I didn't know that we were going to be able to jump into a car. Like, you just have to be very light, like literally light with your equipment, have everything on you and just ready to do whatever happens, right? And hopefully all the equipment doesn't break. That's always something with technology. So for the most part, there were certain things that definitely I had planned, certain shots that I hoped would present themselves. One of which was this follow shot that we did end up getting. I had one other, the crew was just me and a cameraman and my producer who lives in El Salvador, he was just getting us everywhere. He was moving us. He was picking us up. He was, calling people because somebody like Diego, who is in the film, who works with Nuevas Ideas. I didn't know about him or that I was going to film him till about an hour before. And then he was so lovely. He invited us over and then we got a wonderful interview. So it's a very small crew. I don't have a ton of people. It's very light. And we just kind of like find something, get an idea and run for it.
Yeah, actually, I asked you because I saw a retreat. I think it was your cameraman. That I don't want to talk to him, but that he tell a beautiful story of the day that he was filming from. Yeah, probably I will add it, guys, to the podcast notes, so you should read it because it was amazing. But I just felt like while I was reading it, I felt like I was like in an action movie because the way that he described it, that everything was happening at the same time.
It's a nice post. Tigers are really good at like really just explaining it all, getting it out there. I need to take
because you get in the story about what happened to him.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So you managed to talk with Bukele. Also, I saw a tweet that also with his brother. I think you managed.
So I didn't get to talk to Bukele straight. No, he's not. Okay. He's not interviewed whatsoever. I'm just in moments in rooms with him, capturing him with other people or on the phone and stuff like that. I did not get a one-on-one interview, but I did get a one-on-one interview with Yusuf, one of his brothers, and other people. So unfortunately the Bukele interview didn't happen during that time. And I was trying to get it after, but at that moment of time, he wasn't talking to anybody, like nobody. He hadn't even done an interview since 2022. for at least for Western media. He only
Tucker,
just
I think
that was 2022, and then
really?
he only and then he only just did a new one with Tucker after the inauguration. So the inauguration happened. So he was reelected in February, and the inauguration happened, I believe, in July.
Yeah.
So I think that's
1st of July, I think.
1st of July. So, and then he did another interview with him. But in between 2022 and then, my understanding, actually, he told me, but he hadn't done any, and he was not granting any interviews.
Well, but I mean, I get it because U.S. media, well, not just the U.S., but the Western media is attacking him. So, yeah,
sure.
Say like why?
Yeah, I think that's basically it. He was like, he didn't find any utility towards doing it at that moment.
Yeah. Well, but at least you talk with his brother, so that's cool. That's awesome. You mentioned that some people in the Western call him like he's a tyrant or a dictator. Well, that's what the media call him. But you have been in El Salvador and you have interviewed people, so and you have speak people in the streets. So, what the people tell you about him? Did some of them see him like as a dictator, or most of the people see him as what it is, as a democratic president? How was the feeling there?
Like I said before, the only negatives I could get was that it's not enough and they need more. On the street, I didn't, there was nobody that used those words as descriptives. I do have a gentleman that you'll see in the film, if you watch it, that, that recognizes that's the sentiment. It was only till I visited for the premiere that I was speaking to someone who was definitely not interested. Like, the funny thing is that you can't say that you dislike what has happened because the security has brought so much goodness. But at the same time, she said she did not support Bukele and she didn't like Bukele. And why it came back also straight back again to the fact that poverty, the schools are lacking, not enough has been done. So again, fair criticism. The country needs a ton. But I feel like it comes down to the few people I spoke to that are not into Bukele. It's more about because they're affiliated or they have interest in another party.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So there's a loyalty to possibly another party. And that's where the division is, perhaps. But they still can't deny that in Salvador, despite lacking all the things that they want, is in a better place. So I think that's why the next 5 years is going to be really important, because it's gonna tell people, again, what kind of person he is. Is he a dictator that's only going to do things for himself, or is he going to continue building the country in the best way possible? And then maybe I'll get to talk to those people again and see what happens.
Yeah,
about what they think.
Yeah, that will be a good continuation of the story. Yeah. I was asking you because I saw the trailer that actually I know that he tweeted one time, like, he making funny that he told himself like the coolest dictator in the world, something like that.
I mean, it's tongue in cheek how I used it, because I'm a little independent filmmaker, and it you got to like spark some kind of like what, and so many people. The funny thing is, so many people don't know what's happened there. They don't know the story about it, and the number of people that wrote me were like, "Why would you call him a dictator? Don't you think that's going to really piss him off? Like, that's what?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, wait, let me give you a little history lesson." That was on his actual Twitter bio. He did that. If he sees this, he'll know what, he'll know what this is about. And also the Western countries think he is. But he also has the biggest support that any Democratic president has ever gained in an election. So, coolest dictator. I mean, it's kind of like it's a fair play on words.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, no, but in the end, what you have told me about the person that you talked to, I think is the same sentiment that I feel with people that I talk to El Salvador, that not necessarily are in my close circle, but friends from friends, that the ones that are up that don't like Bukele is the same thing, that is because I think it's very complex story about the politics, because he was before a leftist and then he goes to Nuevas Ideas. So yeah, I get it, but it's the same sentiment that we have come from a very dark place to this place. So you cannot deny the results, right? So, and that is one thing. And the other one is, and this one is one of the main topics. It's also about Bitcoin, and that's why we need a lot of education. That's why this podcast exists, or the education institutions that are in El Salvador, like Mi Primer Bitcoin, Google Plus, etc. Because we still need education, because people think that not all of them, of course, but some people think that Bitcoin is like a government coin somehow. So that he adopted Bitcoin just so he can thief money with Bitcoin. It's like, so, and that's what we need to explain, that first what money actually is, in order so they can understand Bitcoin, right? And then that it doesn't make sense that you can steal with Bitcoin, because it's easier to track where the money goes with Bitcoin. So yeah,
Sure.
And there's a lot of discussion there, but what we cannot deny is that where we are now and where we are heading in the next 5 years. So in the end, what do you hope the viewers to take away from watching Forging a Country?
I just want to, provide a moment in time that I think no one else is capturing, in at least the Western media. The few things that I saw were journalists reporting and not even having visited there. It's just accumulating ideas from afar, and that's incredible. I'm not a journalist, but that's just, what kind of reporting is that? So I want people to take away the fact that there's been deep change in a country that has been submerged in darkness for a really long time. And it's palpable. And you can see it on the streets, and you can see it in people's eyes. And there's so much hope. And reminding people, especially in the Western world, how important the very basic need of security is. And the government, that's literally, if they had one job, that should be the job of providing security on the streets. Somehow everyone's been forgetting that lately, or purposefully forgetting that. So the takeaway is to be in the moment in the film, to see what's happening, and to be reminded that security really is freedom on multiple levels. Freedom to learn, freedom to live, freedom to move. I mean, when you realize that, like, Salvadorians weren't able to go to certain places in El Salvador, visit certain areas, go out after nighttime, have their kids play certain times of the day. I mean, how can you have any sense of freedom when you don't even have the ability to, like, physically explore where you live?
Yeah,
it's so basic.
Absolutely. What is your sentiment, by the way, right now? I mean, there's an elections coming in the US, I think in November. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So
that's a long. Do you have about? It's a long podcast ahead of us. I mean, I don't know. Let's see. It's it's a great study on the manipulation of media. That's for sure. This is a continued study of this and how. Oh goodness, I think it's just such a mess. top to bottom. People are forgetting what we're really supposed to be doing, and that the government is supposed to be for the people, not manipulate the people. Yeah, it's a big topic, but I mean, I always have hope. I always have, I hope the best decisions can be made, etc. But it's not looking really good.
Yeah, I'm asking because, one of the things that we say that BitCorner is do your own research, right? So I know that media is really manipulated. So being there, what source do you rely on? Like X, for example, do you, for example, if you read something on X because they have community notes, it's the way for you to make a filter?
I'm not, sure. I get a lot of information on X, alternative ideas. There's a great account named Drew, and he just literally lays out all the media, all the headlines, everything that's happening. It's just wonderful. X really is still a great place to get things. And then, I mean, obviously you can just see it with a lot of it. You can just see with your own eyes. If you really start paying attention, I mean, there's a point in everyone's life where they can choose to really start paying attention. How can someone with like 0% popularity be now the coolest person ever, right? Like, you can just start personal research, personal understanding, knowing trends, seeing things happen. I think it's so unbelievably evident how media works these days that I don't know how people cannot see it, but obviously they don't. So yeah, I guess X is a very good place to still get a lot of interesting criticisms and breakdowns with like factual accounts and stuff. Other than that, I do read other mainstream stuff, but I'm mainly meeting all that stuff so I can compare and contrast and see what hits. Really, do your own research. The best thing in life is do your own research. So
yeah, I think that's why important. Like, it's so important right now, and I think it's going to be more important in the future. Like, for example, independent filmmakers like you, that you don't have to respond to a big corporation, right? Because at the end, if they pay you, they want to show a side of the story. So yeah, I think that's very important, and I also rely on X and also in Nostr, because it's open source as well. But yeah, I think it's really important. And you see, now that I'm far from El Salvador and here in Europe, it's really interesting because I saw it when it started the war here in Russia against Ukraine, and we have seen, not just in the internet, but I don't watch much news on the TV, but the ones that I used to watch, it was like, you can see easily how manipulated it was, Yeah. And then you compare to the Western, and I see that it's really manipulated. So yeah, in the end, the message that I want to share with you guys is this type of work is really important. So congratulations, Jessica. And we're gonna start wrap it up because I know you need to leave. So I just want to ask you, what's next from your country? Are you going to film other Bitcoiner countries? Do you have anything that you could share?
I mean, I'm working. I'm going to try to start funding another project. I can't self-fund anymore. It's a completely new topic. There are people pitching me things right now. I'll see what happens. So there's ideas, but right now it definitely comes down to now getting funding. I can't start another self-funded project anymore. It's not going to happen. I keep on saying that every time, and then it happens because the story just comes and like I have to move faster than the funding process. But I think I'm going to really stick to it this time. So we'll see. I hope to start. I need a couple months to just, I don't know, continue pushing this film out and making plans to start something new. But I definitely hope to start another feature project in a few months.
That's cool. Hope to see them, because by the way, all of them are self-funded, right? The three that I have.
All 3 films have been self-funded except Death Athletic. So I started in 2015. In 2022, I had 2 fantastic funders that jumped in to join the film as executive producers and producer, and then their funding went directly to post-production, which is really expensive. So they were angels. Like I wouldn't have been able to finish that film if they hadn't jumped on. So it was like perfect timing. So mostly self-funded, but that did happen, and it was necessary and wonderful. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So I don't know, anything that you want to add before leaving, and where can people watch basically the 3 films?
Sure. So I'm selling all of them via my own website and from Geyser and VHX. So encodeproductions.com, or my name, jessicasolce.com. That'll take you to my website where you can find out all the information. It's also Death Athletic is also on Amazon and Google and Apple TV. That's all on my websites too. So you can also get those films like Death Athletic on more of a mainstream channels. Yeah.
But here are BitCorner, so let's spend some stats, guys.
Everyone, you can find links to the Geyser, or if you want to hit me up for Monero or anything else, just reach out and we can figure something out.
All right. No, spend some sats, guys.
Yeah. Sats.
Jessica, thank you for your time. Thank you for talking about the film.
Thank you.
And yeah, anything you want to add before leaving?
No, just thank you so much. And if you're moved by the film, please spread the word. Like, please spread the word and reach out and say hi. And it's so independent that every single person that helps is just so deeply appreciated. So thank you for having me.
No, thanks to you. And guys, see you next week. So ciao.
Ciao. Bye.